What you are witnessing right now is a commercial for Quiznos subs, a part of the SPONGMONKEYS campaign, which is, without a doubt, one of the weirdest commercials in the history of weird commercials. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the untold story of Quiznos SPONGMONKEYS. We're going to find out who is responsible for this visual abomination and why they decided to make it in the first place. Also, hi, I'm Devnull, and welcome back to the channel. If you have been following my content, you may have noticed that I have not posted lately. Haven't uploaded any new videos in at least a couple months. Sorry about that. I've been in the process of a move, but I'm happy to say that I now have my new home studio set up, which is actually where I'm recording this from right now. You might not be able to tell given the fact that I am constantly in a VHS static void, but this is in fact a new location, and I'm all settled in now and I'm ready to get back to making content for everyone. All right, that's enough of that. It's SPONGMONKEY time. If you have any memories of these unprecedentedly bizarre commercials, then chances are you were watching TV at some point in 2004, or you've seen this somewhere on the internet since then. If you have not seen this before, then I guess the immediate question that comes to mind is, what the hell am I even looking at? Well, the short answer is an ad for Quiznos subs, which is an American fast food chain founded in 1981. Quiznos was actually once the second largest sandwich shop chain in America, behind Subway, but in recent years they've ended up filing for bankruptcy and closing many of their American locations. I always thought that Quiznos was spelled Quiznos, but apparently it's Quiznos. Man, that's some Mandela effect shit. These unsettling creatures, called the SPONGMONKEYS, are the only official mascots the company has ever had to date, unless we're including the Quiznos Cup Man costume that I'm sure many disgruntled employees were forced to wear in the hot sun. Except for this guy. He's clearly very into it. Look at him go.
Quiznos is supreme! And don't do drugs, children. It's a Subway! Now, why would anyone want to go to a Subway when you could go to a Quiznos? I mean, for real skis, children.
Now, wait a second. This Quiznos does have an apostrophe on it. They're just trying to confuse me. Speaking of grammar and pronunciation, it's important to note that SPONGMONKEYS are not pronounced SPONGMONKEYS, as they are often mistakenly called by folks, myself included until I made this video. They are called SPONGMONKEYS. According to my research, spung is a slang internet term that originated on the British message board Beta, which I'm sure SPONGMONKEY creator Joel Veitch frequented in the early 2000s. Spung, or spunging, describes the process of photoshopping huge, unnatural eyes on images. According to one user, Trashcan Glam, the eyes should be staring at the viewer in order to induce fear, guilt, and terror, and that eyes pointing in quote-unquote silly directions are not spung-worthy. However, the most famous spung creation of all time, the SPONGMONKEYS, do indeed have eyes that are not locked in an icy stare with the viewer, which leaves the true definition of the term up for debate. Academics and philosophers may ponder this question till the end of time. These bizarre rodent-like things were not created exclusively for Quiznos as mascots. They originated in a Flash animation called We Like the Moon on the website rathergood.com, which is the personal website of British web animator and musician Joel Veitch. Somehow, the original animation is even more grating on the eyes and ears than its Quiznos counterpart, thanks to the intentionally horrendous recording quality of the audio.
We like the moon, 'cause it is close to us. We like the moon, but not as much as a spoon, 'cause that's why you for eating soup.
Unfortunately, since most modern web browsers no longer support Adobe Flash, you can't watch We Like the Moon at its original address, but you can find it on the rathergood YouTube channel.
We like the moon.
The animation was created by Joel and his brother in 2003, 1 year before Quiznos contacted him to produce commercials for their new campaign. That's Joel's voice, by the way.
Everybody like the moon because it lights up the sky and it lovely and it
In fact, the HD versions of the Quiznos SPONGMONKEYS spots you've been seeing were also sourced from Joel's rathergood YouTube page. There are 4 commercials in total that were produced for the campaign: We Love the Subs, Coupon, Rejoice, and Huns. All of these ads are more or less the same idea. The SPONGMONKEYS sing along to the tune of We Like the Moon with different lyrics each time.
We love these subs! Subs are $1 off when you bring in a coupon!
Occasionally, the SPONGMONKEYS get a costume change as well. Something I've always wondered is, what are these creatures? According to an article in Slate by Seth Stevenson from 2004, they've been described as gerbils with birth defects, Mr. Potato Rats, drug-addled hamsters, and hell lemurs. In Mr. Stevenson's expert opinion, he says they'd probably best be described as photoshopped pygmy marmosets, but personally, I think they look more like a tarsier. In interviews, it seems Joel Veitch himself doesn't even know exactly what they are. Check out this interview from 2004 where Joel discusses his creation on CNN Headline News.
Yeah, I think people have been quite confused about what exactly they are. It's a very good question. I guess SPONGMONKEYS basically, could be anything. The only thing I do know about them definitely is that they definitely like subs. I really quite enjoy doing things like this, and especially with the ad, because the juxtaposition of those kind of rough graphics on really glossy food shots and serious voiceover really tickles me. It makes me laugh a lot. So
you have probably seen that writers in the advertising world say these commercials are really going to work because they're memorable. They just, young people are talking about them.
I mean, that news anchor is totally right. Here I am nearly 20 years later, and I'm still talking about these commercials. I'd also just like to point out, I think it's kind of funny that the title that CNN decided to give Joel Veitch is Quiznos Creature Creator. So who is this legendary creator of the aforementioned Quiznos creatures? Well, in 2001, Joel gave an interview for the website beta.com in which he stated, "My mission is to destroy production values through swamping the online world with badly polished graphics." Perhaps his mission statement has changed slightly in the 20 years since that interview, or perhaps not. Luckily for us curious minds, Joel actually did a much more recent interview in 2017 with Lee Tyrell of the Secret Cave podcast. Joel goes on to paint a very vivid picture of how he made these commercials and tells the story of, quite honestly, one of the weirdest, most bizarre, most singular, and remarkable commercials to ever air on television.
Where that came from, We Like the Moon. It's got these quite grotesque characters screeching about how much they love the moon. And actually, interestingly, as an aside, this is a good example of what I was talking about before. That is something that I knocked out incredibly quickly. It's a song that was improvised. It wasn't even written. With my brother, while we were really drunk after a night at the pub, we came home and knocked it out. And just looking around the room to kind of pick out the lyrics as we went along. And then I animated it the next day in a few hours. And that has been one of the most successful, in fact, definitely the single most successful thing I've ever made.
I was going to say it was incredibly popular at that time when I was at school. I remember it was one of the most shared ones.
Yeah, it's by far and away the most successful thing I've ever made. And it was also one of the least amount of work I've ever put into anything.
That's intriguing.
Yeah, which is, there's a lesson there and a moral for our times. But so when I did the Quiznos campaign, they've always had a reputation for edgy adverts. That's like a thing that they do, is edgy adverts. And the way the agency won that pitch was they showed the client, the Quiznos guys, some video of some students just cracking up watching a screen. And said, "What are they watching? They're watching your next ad," and showed them a mock-up of which I'd done for them of We Like the Moon, and they just reworded to We Like the Subs, and they took it on that. So that was a great basis for it, because rather than starting with here are these kind of awful characters, these grotesque characters, and they're screeching, and everyone's going to love it. They started with here's some people really liking the thing, and this is what it is they were laughing at, which I think got it past the board in a way that a normal pitch approach wouldn't have.
That's interesting.
But it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then when we put it out, it caused absolute mayhem. Like, it really did cause total mayhem. Because it's completely mental, and I think it's easy to forget how mental that was for, you know, the average guy sitting in the Bible Belt watching the Super Bowl when that kind of popped onto his screen.
Oh God, yeah.
It's culturally completely alien to a large portion of America, and what happened was, all around the edges, everybody absolutely loved it and thought it was the best thing ever, and then in the kind of middle and the south, people thought it was probably the worst thing they'd ever seen, which I thought was perfect, really. That's, you know, everybody was going crazy, either pro or anti.
Right, yeah.
And they aired it on the Super Bowl, which is like the single biggest, that's like the gold chalice for advertising.
That's insane.
Yeah. It's the biggest audience in the world for a thing. So, and it was a really bizarre situation because I was really busy at that time. We were working on this show on Channel 4 here, and I nicked off at Christmas to produce this commercial, and then came back, and and then one day it went out, and everything just went completely bonkers, and I'd kind of go up for a cigarette break, and there'd just be all these messages from newspapers and magazines and radio stations in America all asking me to interview, and I'd been told I should clear any interview requests. I'd been told not to speak to the press without checking, you know. So I was kind of referring it all back through the agency and everything, and I ended up not speaking to anyone very much, maybe one or two people. Yeah, I ended up back in America shortly after for, was it my brother's wedding? I think it was my brother's wedding. I was back in within a couple of months, and it was like, it had been a culturally significant moment. It was very strange. It was like, you know, people were introducing me as the Quiznos guy and then not believing it. Like, nah, you're not the Quiznos guy, nah.
That really is crazy, actually.
Yeah, it was bonkers. It was really bonkers.
What were Quiznos' reaction themselves like after it all settled down, I guess? If you even heard back from them, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it boils down to sales. So I think they were pleased with the amount. The thing is, generated coverage is the point of that kind of edgy advertising. So to try and get column inches you haven't had to pay for, that's the point, I think, from their point of view. But it all has to come. So it did well in terms of making noise. But I'm not sure they had any particular upswing in sales. So after that initial campaign, we did a few, actually. We did three of them, or was it 4? And some radio spots and stuff. So we did the campaign, but then when the next campaign came around a year later, they took on a different agency. So I guess that probably says enough about it. I guess they would have kept it on if they'd wanted to do it again. But yeah, it was certainly a roller coaster. It was fun to be on.
At the end of the day, the real reason that Quiznos embrace these fuzzy little freaks is quite simple. It's good advertising. Or at least it can be. The Spung Monkeys had all the makings of a successful advertising campaign. It's a sort of shock spot, but its unique and novel brand of weirdness lends its staying power. It's also important to note that while the Spung Monkeys themselves look hideous and bizarre, we are still treated to the usual glossy product shots of steamy subs that you'd find in any normal commercial. You know, it actually worked on me. Back when I was a kid, I used to beg my parents to take me to the local Quiznos, purely because the deformed creatures on TV told me to. There's a reason that people still remember the one-time mascots of a declining sandwich empire whose spots only aired for a few months in 2004. It was undoubtedly an impactful piece of art. However, on the business side of things, the Spung Monkeys' reception back in 2004 was a bit different. Ad Age wrote that some franchisees were so pissed about the weird campaign that they posted signage in their stores apologizing for them and assuring their customers that they had nothing to do with the cursed commercials. A Mashed article states, in the first week, Quiznos Denver headquarters got in the neighborhood of 30,000 phone calls from people wondering what the heck was going on, and when it came time to give the Spung Monkeys the axe, corporate said they'd done what they were supposed to do, create buzz. Unfortunately, it wasn't all good buzz. That assessment is actually backed up by Business Insider. The Spung Monkeys topped their list of the 10 worst ad campaigns of all time. The feeling wasn't unanimous necessarily. Some franchisees really embraced the Spung Monkeys. However, once Subway copied Quiznos' gimmick of toasting their subs, the future looked grim. Some may even cite the Spung Monkey campaign as contributing to the decline of Quiznos and their bankruptcy, but I would put my money on other factors. It cannot be overstated that Quiznos franchisees had a terrible relationship with the company, suing and countersuing in a series of class action lawsuits that cost Quiznos corporate over $300 million. And that's just scratching the surface of Quiznos' alleged bad business practices.
A secret shopper and a missing ounce of meat caused 2 Quiznos franchise owners, their sub shop had cost Quiznos $700,000 for an ounce of meat.
Here's the thing, Quiznos was battling Subway, and they were bragging that they had more meat than the Subway sandwich.
Right.
And they were under pressure to make sure that all of their franchisees were conforming, and they were pretty hard on these franchisees. I mean, they sent letters out to 300 of their franchisees saying, you're going to lose your franchise here because you didn't put enough meat on the sandwich. A lot of times when you join a franchise, they treat you kind of like an employee, and you're really
like an indentured servant, I mean, in some cases.
Despite alleged reforms in 2022, Quiznos' redemption arc ceases to exist, given its abysmal reputation among franchisees. It's a shame that such a funny, creative, and unique commercial was used to promote such a shady company, but that's all too often the case for many great commercials. On a brighter note, the Spung Monkey characters actually have a lifespan that extends beyond the Quiznos commercials. Joel Veitch has included the characters in numerous web animations and little videos since their inception, including Hover Bacon,
Can you imagine a world with hover bacon? La 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 la.
the Parsley expansion,
You want to eat some parsley? Eat the what? Eat some parsley! Eat the parsley!
and Look at My Potato, which is peak early internet humor if I've ever seen it.
Would you like to look at my potato? It just sits there being a potato. Would you like to look at my potato? It does not do anything at all. Would you like to look at my potato? It just sits there being a potato. Would you like to look at my potato? Would you like to look at my potato? It just sits there being a potato. Would you like to look at my potato? Would you like to look at my potato? Would you like to look at my potato? It just sits there being a potato. Would you like to look at my potato? It just sits there being a potato.
I think that there's a reason that the Spung Monkeys have seared their photoshopped image and screeching voices into our minds all these years later. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that reason is, but maybe it's the same reason you decided to click on this video. Food for thought. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, then like the video. If you like the content on this channel and you'd like to see more in the future, then don't forget to hit subscribe and ring that bell. And if you really want to support the channel and make me very happy, then please check out my Patreon. It is in the description below. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
We love these subs! Cause they are good to us! The Quiznos subs! They are tasty, they are crunchy, they are warm because they toast them! They got a pepper bar!